Welcome to Peace Now. I'm your host today. My name is Trudy Quaife. I'm a member of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. We're a local organization. We've been advocating for peace and justice for the past decade. Welcome to our show. Today our guest is Joe Lombardo. Thanks for being here, Joe.
You're very welcome.
Joe is one of the founding members of Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, and he's also co-coordinator of a national peace organization called United National Anti-War Coalition. So, Joe, let's start out talking a little bit about your background. How did you become a peace activist?
Well, I think I was born a peace activist. My parents were both political activists. They were union organizers, union activists, and political organizers. They brought me to the original Civil Rights March in 1962, where Martin Luther King made his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, and I've been political all my life. When the Iraq War started, I joined with some other folks in this community in Del Mar, and we had a meeting to organize Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. Prior to that, I had been a full-time staff person with the National Peace Action Coalition, which was one of the two major coalitions that organized against the Vietnam War, and I've been a political activist all my life.
So when you joined Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, what did you have in mind, and how has it gone over the past decade? What have you been involved with?
Well, our goals were very big. Our goals were to end the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and really to change the world, to make it a peaceful place to live. And that's a big goal that can't be achieved in a week or perhaps in quite a long period of time. But we've been organizing and making a lot of success, and I really believe we've had an impact in this community, and people around the country actually saw what Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace and the peace movement in the Capital District was doing in general. And in 2010, they asked us if we would host a national conference in July of 2010, which was held in Albany, and 800 people from around the country came, and that's where UNAC, United National Anti-War Coalition, was formed. And it's a big task that we can't just achieve locally. It's something that we need to organize with other people nationally, and that's why we have a national coalition, and internationally. So I've actually recently been on a trip to Pakistan, where I worked with anti-war activists there who are fighting against the drone wars going on in their country. And there's a lot of work to do, but I think we're making some serious progress.
Okay, I think most of the community knows about our weekly vigils at the Four Corners here in Del Mar on Mondays from 5 to 6. Would you want to mention any of the other kinds of activities that Bethlehem Neighbors is involved with?
Well, we're involved in a lot of activities. There are kind of staple activities we do, like a weekly vigil on Monday from 5 to 6 at Four Corners, and we've been doing that for 10 years, over 500 vigils. In the rain, in the snow, in the cold, and in the heat, we are out there. We also have a monthly discussion group meeting, and after our vigil, we go to a local establishment close by, and we talk about whatever is happening with the anti-war movement, with the situations with war, and politics in general, because it's really clear that so much of the war is related to energy issues and related to climate change, to civil liberties issues, and a lot more. So it affects a lot of our members, and a lot of our members are at this discussion where we talk about these things. We also hold weekly meetings, monthly meetings, and sometimes those meetings recently have had a different character, such as a music meeting where we get together and some of us play music from the civil rights movement and the peace movement and labor movement and so forth. We also have a monthly forum at the library where we typically show a film or have a panel discussion. And I think in that way we've really added to the education in this community, and they're well-attended forums on a whole series of subjects related to peace and justice issues. We've also helped organize for people from the Capital District to go to national events, such as major demonstrations in New York or Washington, D.C., or other areas. And we do a number of things. We've held, recently did a really great play that was very well attended, where a lot of people joined in and did parts. It was from the People's History of the United States. I don't think that was the actual name, but it was Howard Zinn's book, and he made a play out of that book where it was Voices of the People, I think it was called, where various historical figures that have fought for social justice or been involved in the movement throughout history spoke, and our members and friends spoke their words, and it was very well attended. So there's many, many ways that you can struggle for peace, and you can help raise consciousness and help discuss the issues of peace, and we're involved in all of them.
Good. Let's move on to UNAC. Joe is co-coordinator for this national organization that's probably one of the most active, probably the most active national peace organization right now, and he's very involved in that as the co-coordinator. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, early on in the peace movement, there were some very large demonstrations that took place. In February 15th, 2003, we're coming up on the 10th anniversary. There was perhaps the largest peace demonstration, or largest demonstration of any kind in history that took place. It took place in cities all across the world. 1 million people in Rome, 1 million people in Tokyo, 1 million people in London, 500,000 people in New York, 250,000 people in San Francisco, all throughout the world. In fact, there were demonstrations on every continent in the world, including Antarctica, where there were 2 continents, 2 demonstrations. The 2 areas that are populated are right at the pole, where there's a research facility, and on the shelf of Antarctica. And the people that were populating those areas joined together and made peace demonstrations. However, as the movement went on, it became very, very difficult. It became very clear that the government, especially the Bush administration at the time, was determined not to listen to the people of this country, even though more and more were coming out against the war. And today we have a situation where over 70% are against the wars, yet our government still don't listen to the American people and are escalating wars all over the world. So these were organized by national coalitions, and some of these coalitions kind of went into remission after a while, and they didn't have a lot of success with the election of Obama. Some people pulled back from their peace work, but we didn't pull back from the peace work, and people noticed this around the country. They also noticed that although there was a lot of infighting in the peace movement all around in different major cities, there wasn't in Albany. We all worked together, whether we were Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, Women Against War, or whatever. And we did something else in the Capital District, which was a model for the rest of the country. We noticed that this so-called war on terror had a domestic component, and it was most affecting at that particular time the Muslim community, as the FBI was sending agents into mosques and trying to get people to buy into phony plots that they were inventing, and bribing people to do this and so forth, and then arresting them and saying, you see, we have terrorists, local terrorists, so we have to cut back on civil liberties and we have to fight this war on terror. And so there were a number of people here in this community that were affected that way. Imam Aref from the mosque on Central Avenue was one person who was falsely accused and is now spending 15 years in jail. Another member of that mosque named Mohammed Hussein is another person. There were many, many others. Ali Yagi, who owned a pizza place, and someone said they heard him make an anti-American comment, and they put him in the Metropolitan Detention Center, where people get tortured on a regular basis. It's in Brooklyn, and eventually deported him, even though he has an American wife and American children. They broke up that family, this government with great family values, and so forth. So we in the anti-war movement took up those causes, and this became a model for the rest of the country. So when the anti-war movement said we need to put together a new strong coalition, they looked to Albany and they asked us, can you host it? So we asked around and said yes. So since July 2010, UNAC has been around, and we have coalition members all throughout the country, national organizations such as Veterans for Peace, Fellowship of Reconciliation, a number of other groups, as well as local organizations like Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace in towns and villages and cities all across the country. That's who UNAC is, and we try to pull these together on kind of national actions. The next A series of national actions will take place in April, where we'll be organizing against the drones that are very hideous, ominous type of warfare. It's a warfare where someone sits behind a computer screen in a place like Syracuse, New York, and kills people, kills families, watches them, watches the children play in the yards of the houses and so forth, and then makes the decision at some point to kill them. And it blows up a house, and 10, 20 people die. It's also part of targeted assassinations that the Obama administration is doing, and there's been two important memos that have been leaked in the last couple of days, one from the Justice Department that shows how they are using these drones to do target assassinations even of American citizens. So they killed an American citizen in Yemen, and then when his 16-year-old son came to Yemen to look for him, they used a drone to kill that particular young man. Both were American citizens, no trial, no charges, no nothing. Just they killed them, and they believe they have a right to do that. And there's a memo now that's out saying any high government official, and who is a high government official? You know, is it a government official, you know, from where? Is it Justice Department? Is it the military? Is it Obama? Is it Congress? Can decide to kill anyone, even an American citizen. And the drones also go across borders into countries that we're not at war with and kill people there, like in Pakistan, where on a daily basis they're killing people. And so we're going to be organizing against the drones. We're also organizing some civil liberties activities, because our civil liberties have been greatly cut back because of this. They can now spy on us, on our email, on our phones, do whatever they want. And all this is in the name of you know, homeland security and so forth. So these are very ominous signs, and we'll be organizing against this. We're also going into Africa now, and UNAC has taken a lead in organizing against Africa. We have sent troops into 35 African countries. We're building up AFRICOM to do our bidding in our wars in Africa. We are now in Mali. We're using the French to lead there, but that's where we are. And so wars are spreading. Libya and Mali and Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and so forth. One after another, we hear of different wars going on all the time, and the U.S. is in the business of killing these people. 120 countries we have military in doing actions right now. And so we need a national and an international organization to end it, and that's where we see UNAC coming in.
That sounds good. One of the things I wanted people to know about is that Joe went to Pakistan in the fall, and he went to meet with the victims of U.S. drone strikes. And I thought that was a very brave thing for you to do, Joe, and we were all really proud of you. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that trip and what it was like to meet with the victims of these drone strikes.
Well, we did a few things. One of them was we met with victims of drone strikes, mainly family members of people who have had, mainly members of families in which people have been killed by drones. So we met with a tribal elder, for instance, who had his son and his brother killed in a drone strike. We met with a number of other people that had their children killed in drone strikes. Children have been targets. In North Waziristan in Pakistan, where a lot of the drone strikes have taken place, kids no longer go to school. They're afraid to go to school because they're afraid they'll be hit. And where there have been people congregating, those have been the targets. So for instance, the governing body in Waziristan is known as the Jirga. They are elders of the various tribes that come together and do legislation. And the Jirga meeting last March, we targeted and we killed 40 leaders in that country. No charges, no accusations, nothing. We just killed them. And if anything, it creates more terrorists. You know, I asked, because I wanted to see how this was, I asked some of these people we met with who were family members of people that were killed, I said, if you had the opportunity to blow up someone in our government because of what they did to your family, even if it meant your own life, would you do it? Everyone said, yes, they would. I'm not a violent man. I'm a peaceful person. But this has gone, they've killed my children, and they don't even say we're sorry. And, you know, I'm willing to give my life to get back at them. So we create terrorists. But, you know, I think that's the intention. I think if you're having a war on terror, you have to have terrorists. So you do things like this, which will get the anger and the ire of these people up, and they want to get back at you, and then we call them terrorists. There's no army in Pakistan that's going to attack us or anything like that, but these individuals hate us. And throughout Pakistan, I found a tremendous hatred of the United States. Over 74% in a poll said their major enemy is the United States, and it was expressed to me over and over again, why does your government feel it has the right to come into our country and kill anybody it wants at any time? Why does your government have that right to do about it? Why can't you stop your government? I tell them we're trying, but you know, there's not much we could do. The other thing we did in Pakistan was, there's a leading politician named Imran Khan who is likely going to be the next president in Pakistan. The elections are in March, and he's very much against the drone strike. So he organized a march from Islamabad, the capital, into Waziristan. And we went with him. There was 31 of us from the United States that went with him on this march. It wasn't really a march, it was a car caravan. It was miles, miles long. It was thousands of people came to Waziristan. And the tribal leaders in Waziristan, the 3 tribal leaders in South Waziristan where we're going, were welcoming us. They were going to organize their people to greet us. We're a huge anti-war demonstration in Waziristan. And the Pakistani government blocked us. We went right up to the border, and we were told we were the only Westerners that have been in there in 10 years. And when we got to the border, the Pakistani government, and we were told at the behest of the U.S. government, blocked us with these big canisters and did not let us get us into Waziristan. So the people on one side of the canisters were waiting for us to hold a huge, massive rally, and on the other side we were ready to come. The U.S. did not want to see the people in the tribal areas come together with U.S. citizens and with other people in Pakistan on a peace rally, because it would say, these people all want peace. Why are we killing them? And so they didn't want to do that. So that's what we did. We did some other things in Pakistan, and if I have time, I just want to mention one other.
Yes, go ahead.
There's a lot of political prisoners in the United States. A lot of them have to do with Muslim cases, but there's others like Mumia, and one of the leaders of UNAC is in jail, who is Lynn Stewart. I could tell you that case, but I'm not going to. What I want to talk about is the case of a Pakistani who's very popular in Pakistan. Throughout all of Pakistan, you will see signs saying, Afia Siddiqui is our hero. We kidnapped Afia Siddiqui with her 3 children from Pakistan and brought her to Bagram Air Force Base, which is basically a prison in Afghanistan where we do torture. It's been documented. We torture people there. And that's another memo that came out showing that we have these black sites around the country, around the world, where we bring people and we torture them.
Yes.
That recently came out. But they denied they had Afia Siddiqui, and her family just didn't know where she was until 2008. A British journalist who got into this prison in Afghanistan said there's one woman out of all the men there, and that woman is Afia Siddiqui. And so her family called up the U.S. again and said, well, we hear that you have her. And now they admitted they did have her, but they said they're bringing her to the United States for trial. And they said while she was being interrogated, and interrogation means torture to the United States of America.
Yes.
While she was being interrogated, they said she grabbed the rifle, this is a 4'11" woman, of one of the interrogators and shot at him, didn't hit him, but they shot back and hit her twice in the stomach. First of all, I think she'd have a right, if she's being tortured, to do whatever she can to get out of it. But she denies she did this. She says she doesn't even know how to shoot a gun. And so she's now serving 86 years. She's been in solitary confinement in Texas. Her 3 children, 2 of them have been found. One was returned in 2010, no longer speaking her native language, only English with an American accent. And her youngest son, who was 6 months at the time of the kidnapping, has never been found and feared dead. This is what our government has done in the United States of America. So we want to make, when we went down there, we met with these people because we want to make this a case in this country. The U.S. doesn't want people to know about this case. That's why you don't hear about it. It's well known. 1 million people came out for a demonstration for Afia Siddiqui in Pakistan. But our country doesn't want you to know this case because they have no way of defending what they have done and what they are continuing to do to this woman. So the anti-war movement's going to do this, and we met with her when we were in Pakistan. Met with her family.
So just to touch on go back to the drones for a minute, would you say that it's increasingly clear that these drone strikes have actually created more terrorism and more unrest in the Middle East?
Yeah, it's very clear that that's the case. we're killing people in countries that we're not even at war with, like Pakistan and Yemen, Somalia. We're now have put a series of drone bases throughout Africa, and we just feel, the United States feels it has the right to cross anybody's border and kill anybody it wants, whenever it wants. And this is generating tremendous hatred towards the United States all around the world. We try to say everybody loves us because of our democracy. Well, this isn't democracy. There's no democracy when you deny people, you know, the judicial rights of a trial or something before you assassinate them and kill them. When you kill major sections of people's communities and destroy their communities and say it's only collateral damage and we have the right to do that, offer no reparations for them. So there's a lot of hatred, and this has fueled some of the terrorism that's going on. And terrorism is a funny word, you know. When we were there, we also met with the ambassador to Pakistan, and he told us he's very familiar with North Waziristan. He used to live there. And we said, when did you live there? And he said, oh, I lived there when the Russians were in Afghanistan, and we were organizing these people to go in and fight the Russians. So I said, when you were organizing them to fight the Russians, you didn't call them terrorists then, did you? You called them freedom fighters. So one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. And these people in Pakistan who are fighting against the U.S. drones and U.S. presence consider themselves patriotic in their own countries and are doing what they need to do to get rid of a foreign invader of their country. And the U.S. uses that every time they strike back at us. They see there's terrorism. We have to cut back on your civil liberties. We have to do more with drones. We have to do more military. And we have to use such a great part of our budget, 59% of our discretionary budget, while everything else is falling apart in this country, goes to the military. And that's a terrible statement about what this country is about.
I know that there's an event coming up to protest drones at Hancock Field in Syracuse, which maybe a lot of people don't realize is one of the bases where the drones are actually flown out of. So the operator of the drone is going home at night to their family, while during the day they're killing people from Hancock Field in Syracuse, New York. So this is an issue that we're going to be talking more about in a future program. So hopefully Joe will come back and talk to us more about that in the future. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, what kinds of events are you planning for the future? These wars are continuing. We've been at war for over a decade now. What kinds of events are both the local organizations and the national peace organizations looking at for the future?
Well, as I mentioned, April's going to be Drone Month, and at Hancock Base at the end of April we're going to have a large demonstration, and we're going to organize the whole region, New York City, New York State, New England, to come to Syracuse, to Hancock base and protest there. There's been an ongoing protest that has been happening by a group of great people from upstate New York called the Upstate New York Coalition Against the Drones. I've been involved in some of those, and others have been too. A number of people have been arrested doing civil disobedience at the gate of the drone base. And we will be holding protests there. This Sunday there's going to be a meeting in Syracuse to help organize that, and I'll be going out to that meeting. If anybody else would like to come, they're welcome to come also with me. And then there will be other drone activities all throughout the country. In San Diego, there'll be a major focus for the West Coast. That it's actually going to be a cross-border. Mexican peace movement is coming with us. They're going to be organizing on their side of the border, then trying to come across the border into San Diego to join with the American peace movement to protest at General Dynamics that makes the Predator and Reaper drones down there. New York City, there will be a big action because an Israeli drone maker, when there was the big hurricane down in New York, Sandy, recently, people were evacuated from some hospitals, but one of the public hospitals, one of the few public hospitals left in New York City, they decided not to open again. That's going to be on Roosevelt Island. Instead, they're giving their property to an Israeli drone maker, and we're also giving them $300 million to build a drone research facility for drones there. So we're going to protest in New York City about that. There'll also be a protest here in Albany because the new nanotechnology facility in Albany, at Albany, is getting money from the Defense Department and building components for drones. So along with local Occupy Albany, we will be doing a protest there, and there will be protests all across the country during April. We will be organizing from here, not only to support the Albany protest, but to support the one in New York and support the one in Syracuse. We will have carpools or buses going down, and I hope people will contact Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace to join us on that. Additionally, we're organizing national tours of two Pakistanis will be touring in the spring. And Malila Joya, who's a woman legislator in Afghanistan, who's been very much against the war and was actually railed out of the legislature because of her anti-war position from U.S. government, backed government, U.S. imposed government on Afghanistan. She now lives in fear of her life, a different house every night, afraid that she will be killed. But she will be here in the fall at the anniversary of the Afghan war. We'll be touring her around. She'll be talking about that. And there's a number of other activities. We're going to do another tour on civil liberties and so forth. But these are some of the actions.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Joe. I think we could go on for another half hour here. There's so much to talk about. It's been really wonderful to have you here today. I know people are watching and wondering how they can get more involved, and who should they contact? What should they do if they're interested in working for peace?
Well, they should contact Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace, which is BethlehemNeighborsForPeace@yahoo.com is the email address. They could call 518-439-1968 to get involved. They could join us at our Peace Vigil at 5 o'clock on every Monday. Or they can contact UNAC at UNACPeace, UNACPEACE @gmail.com, and we'd be happy to hook people up with activities they could do, and I hope many will join us.
Thank you. So join us next time. We hope to cover many different issues in the future. One of our episodes will be concerning drones, and there's all sorts of events coming up in the future that we'll be talking about here with Joe and other local peace activists, and we hope you'll join us for all of them. Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.